Vance Hanna, and I would like to welcome all of you to a very exciting slideshow from a gentleman that I met last year about this time. I had the great opportunity to attend the NBAA show, which was held down in Orlando. And as I mentioned to Edis when I met him, I flew down on a Citation with some Williams jet engines over here out of over here in Michigan. We build these engines, and surprisingly, the company that I flew down with, I was the only passenger on this plane. The two owners of the aircraft are both pilots, so consequently when I got there, I was totally amazed at the floor of the NBAA show. And by the way, for the interior architects and others that are involved with major interior projects, we're going to see some of that tonight that Mr. Doret has been able to garner as part of his professional acumen. Edese was born in Haiti, left Haiti and emigrated to the United States at 3 years of age to the Bronx, grew up in the Bronx. And from what he tells me, he did a lot of even graffiti artwork for other friends, and he actually got paid to do graffiti on the back of their jean jackets, etc. He was so talented that he garnered a scholarship to the High School for Art and Design in New York City, which is pretty incredible. Those of you who know that school know that it's not an easy school to get into. Next step was Pratt Institute, and again, I happen to be emotionally connected to Pratt because all of my instructors, or three of my major instructors from undergraduate school and graduate school, came from Pratt. And consequently, Edese and I were talking about in the car, there was one person, and my students know they're supposed to be reading Rowena Reed Castello's book, which is The Elements of Design, written by Gail Greet Hanna. I hope you have it written because there could be a test. The point of the matter is that Edese was a very talented student at Pratt, working his way, even working for design firms even prior to graduation. And as he graduated, he has worked for another private aircraft company for several years. And after that, he began in 1991 his own firm, Edis Dor, garnering such accounts as Sony Music, Walt Disney, Donald Trump, and later on clients now today that he actually cannot share the photographs and images because they are considered security reasons. But he's also done work for the government of Dubai, for their Air Force. He's done work for the royal family of Saudi Arabia, including the interior of their jets and their watercraft, which we would actually call yachts. Some of them are probably so large we can't imagine them, but they are. He's also done even the exterior design and designed yachts with his firm in New York City. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Edese Doret to Lawrence Tech University. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Hello? Well, thanks for coming out. I'm a little nervous. I've never actually done this before. You're my first group that I've actually had the opportunity to show my work to publicly. As Vance said, I started out on my own after leaving Pratt just a couple years after, which was a pretty, I guess, daring move on my part. Usually, typically, designers will wait a few years before embarking on their own venture, but I felt compelled to do so because I don't play well with others, I guess you could say. But I started out basically doing product design. And product design, doing a lot of work for a company called M. Kamenstein. And essentially, I did a lot of work also for Hoyer Crystal and Dansk International. And my first few projects were basically these crystal animals, which we developed. And the basic process was we would develop sketches and then do clay models, and then basically cast those clay models with a rubber material, and then create these resin forms. And from the resin forms, we would send those resin forms to the factory, and they would create basically these crystal animals, essentially, which Dance marketed and sold quite well. We also created perfume bottles for Revlon, and did a line of perfume bottles for them, working a lot with metal and glass. We also did a lot of crystal at the time for Hoya, which is a Japanese I guess, glass company. We also did a lot of work for M. Kamenstein. This particular line is what we call the Country Collection, which is a line of basically different bread boxes and bowls and storage containers and pitchers. and water containers. We also did a lot of work for Farberware, doing a line of air pots in various materials. What we tried to do is basically explore different possibilities and material processes to essentially bring some excitement to the product. And we did, as I say, these air pots and also a whole line of what we call these mimic glass carafes, essentially, these thermal carafes. From there on, I went back to work essentially for another designer doing aircraft, as Vance said. And while working for him, you know, I combined some of the elements that I've learned in product design and also doing some architecture. And the first real big project that our office got was to do the A380 for Prince Al Walid, which was for us a very challenging project because at the time no one ever considered doing an interior for the A380. And the Prince himself was a challenging client to work for. We first started out developing hundreds and hundreds of various layouts, just exploring the different elements of the interior. You know, spread over 2 levels, and we also developed a lot of sketches of the, here you see the entry area, and also the dining area, as well as his bedroom. And what we would call, there was an area in the back of the airplane on the upper deck, which we referred to as the Kima Lounge. And the Prince himself would like to take his guest out to the desert in Saudi Arabia and basically have these, what we would call tents, but they were referred to as Kima lounges. And they would stay there and, you know, I guess commiserate. And so what we wanted to do was replicate that on the aircraft. And essentially, the back of the aircraft has what we called a back pressure dome. And what we did was we researched the technology and applied a flexible monitor which spanned the entire both decks, and that monitor essentially was wired to an exterior camera on the back of the airplane. And essentially, when the aircraft was flying, you would have a view of the back of the airplane from the exterior camera. And essentially, when they're in this area, they would actually feel like, you know, the back of the airplane was open and that you know, they were exposed to the sky. So it was a pretty interesting concept, which was quite successful. And we also explored as well on the interior just various seat designs. And then from there, these finished photos of the interior. This is a stairway going to the upper deck of the aircraft. Here's another shot looking forward, and that sort of small stairway that you see there goes to the flight deck, and again, that grand stairway goes to the upper deck. In the forward section of the aircraft, we created what we called an entry lounge. And just going back to the whole concept of creating all of the different layouts, traditionally in aviation, you know, if you see various aircraft interiors, a lot of the furnishings are sort of tied to the sidewall. And what we did was we took a complete departure from this and created what we refer to as a loft plan. Basically, we opened up the cabin and essentially divided up the space using various monuments, dividing up the entry lounge to the grand lounge and the dining area. And then it's not until you get to the back of the airplane where you have the galley and the guest seating where, you know, it's more compartmentalized. But by doing this, we, you know, it allowed the passengers to feel like, as if they were basically in the New York loft, essentially. And what we also did was we used non-conventional seating that you wouldn't normally see in an aircraft by basically modifying the bases and using seat posts from military C-130 and, you know, hard mounting them to the floor. In aviation, there's certain seats that you can sit in which are called TTL, which are seats that you could take on for taxi, takeoff, and landing. And these particular seats that you see here, lounge seats, you're not allowed to sit in, essentially. And also what you see in the aircraft is a spiral stairway. Now that spiral stairway goes down to a lower lobe, and essentially what we did was we created what we call an Air Force One air stair, which you'll actually see on Air Force One, which folds down from the belly of the aircraft and goes onto the tarmac. We also created a lot of custom lighting and the custom sidewalls as well. Every element within the interior we basically designed. When the aircraft is delivered either from Boeing or Airbus, it's delivered what is called green. And it's basically an empty shell. And what we have to do in our task is essentially to fill that interior up with various elements, essentially. Whether it's lighting, the sidewall, seats. And our job basically is to act as architects, and the aircraft themselves are built by facilities called completion centers. This image here is of a wet bar, which is a transition point. Like I mentioned before, there's these monuments. And on this side, on the right-hand side, essentially, is a wet bar, and on the other side, on the left-hand side, is a laboratory, which we don't have a shot of there. This forward section is a portion of the Grand Lounge. This is sort of a basically mini theater. In the back here is where the prince would sit with his guests and just, I guess, commiserate. And what we thought would be a nice element would be to add a model of his yacht behind him as well. This here is the dining area. It's just a shot looking aft. Behind that panel where the image is a small passageway that goes to the galley and also the guest seating. Here's a view looking forward from the dining area. You can see the monitor there in the background. As part of our presentation to His Royal Highness, we created this sort of animation. Shortly after completing the A380, we were contracted by a company called, oh God, the name escapes me, Custom Jet Interiors. What they wanted to do was market aircraft, that they had a fleet of used aircraft, and essentially we took one of those aircraft and created what is called a test demo. And it was a 737-300. And lending from the experience on the A380, we continued and created sort of these essentially open cabins. And in this shot is a view of the lounge and dining area combination. And this is a view looking basically forward. Here we turn the table slightly in terms of the dining table, sort of longitudinally, and move the monitor to the sidewall, which is very untraditional, I guess you could say, in aircraft or aviation. This is just another shot of the lounge itself. This is a view of the bedroom. Now, in our practice, at various times we look for different materials to use. And while working on this project, and also working on the A380, there was various materials that we were trying to source within the industry and also in architecture. And what we wanted to do was bring an element of architecture within the aircraft. And there was an item which is referred to as architectural glass. Now, in aviation, we're not allowed to use glass because of safety reasons. So what I did was I went to a friend who I went to school with, and essentially what we did was we created a new product, essentially, which I refer to as jet mirror, which is the reflective material that you see behind the bed and along the sidewall there. And before coming up with it, I just sort of looked around and tried to source this material and couldn't find it. And eventually what I did was I created a new material and started another company to just sort of support the aircraft that I was doing, and the company did quite well. I mean, it's completely independent of my firm, but it allowed me to have another source in terms of supply of lighting, because the company does create lighting as well, and these hard surfaces, and it's been quite exciting and a challenge at the same time. The view that you see here from the bedroom is looking aft, essentially, towards the back pressure dome. And also what we did here was we wanted to combine his office and the bedroom, since the aircraft was very small. And by doing that, we also integrated the monitor into the desk, essentially. And for BCI, in order to market the aircraft, what we did was we took and created an animation of the interior, and using a blue screen, hired some actors and filmed the actors in a studio. And the studio was basically set up the way the aircraft was laid out, and BCI essentially used this video to market their product, essentially, which was these aircraft. I was a little nervous. I thought I bought the R-rated version of that video. A couple of years ago, we were approached by a gentleman from Reliance, which is an Indian firm, and he wanted to buy a new Boeing Business Jet for his wife. And so essentially we were contracted by this gentleman, and what we did was we developed this Boeing BBJ-2 for his wife, essentially. And in this aircraft, we sort of went back to our roots and used a lot of wood on the floor, a completely different interior. We came up with this new shade Roman or mechanized shade system, which was completely revolutionary in aviation, which basically these shades would basically angle to block the light and then collapse into the sidewall to let more light in. And also we came up with some new lighting and a new sort of what appears to be glass, but it's actually a polycarbonate material table, essentially. This is a view of the, I guess, bedroom looking forward. And then this is also the laboratory. Unfortunately, I thought I bought more slides of the interior than this, but there is also an animation which would give you guys a better idea of what the interior looks like.